What happens at Grandma's stays at Grandma's is a model for you and your grandkids. If it's fun, it's fair game. But lately, hip pain has you grimacing more than laughing. And that's a moment you realize life's too short to put off treatment any longer.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care, with hundreds of joint replacements each year. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better. The Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 711, How Managing Your Finances is Just Like Managing Your Fitness, with financial lifeguard Christine Luken.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. I am very excited to speak with my guest today, Christine Luken. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So you are, it's amazing that we're both here local to Cincinnati.
Yes.
But you've done so many amazing things with your own personal story, and then helping so many people figure out their finances and their emotions around their finances, their health, their financial health, which is exactly what I want to talk about with, the parallels between financial health and physical and mental health, because I feel like, at least for me personally, and I know that you work with so many different people, that I'm like, okay, I feel like I kind of have the health and fitness thing kind of nailed down a little bit. But when it comes to financial fitness, I am just a train wreck off the rails a little bit. I mean, it's not that bad. I'm not living in a van down by the river or anything yet, but I am definitely have a hard case of avoidance when it comes to the financial topic. And I'm sure that is something that you deal with a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think people build it up in their head to be harder than it really is. And I'm sure you see that with physical fitness, that people think that it's going to be really hard, that they're going to have to spend a lot of time in order to get that piece of their life right. And that makes them want to avoid it.
Yeah. So tell me all about you. I guess let's start. I know that you have such an incredible story about how to kind of where you got where you are now. So I guess let's begin there of your financial background.
Yeah. So I got into financial coaching not because I've done everything perfectly. In fact, quite the opposite. At age 26, I hit financial rock bottom, despite having an accounting degree, despite working for the family business as the staff accountant. And a good part of the reason why I hit financial rock bottom is because I was in a relationship with a guy who had terrible money habits. He was in and out of jobs and even in and out of jail. And I thought if I just loved him enough that he would change. And he did. He got worse. So after being in this relationship for 7 years, we were engaged. I had a wedding dress in the closet. I found myself in a position of wanting to leave the relationship. You can probably guess that there were more things than just the money that were going on in that relationship. It was just generally unhealthy. But I had no money to leave the relationship. So I had no money to get another apartment. I had no money to move out. I was basically, I had put myself in a position where I was stuck. And so I had to swallow my pride and reach out and get some help. Fortunately, my dad didn't make me feel ashamed or bad about the situation I had gotten myself into. Although I'm sure deep down inside, he was thinking, I told you so. Like, that guy's a jerk. That guy's a deadbeat. You shouldn't be with him.
Yeah, I'm sure your dad wasn't psyched that you were with a guy that's in and out of jail.
I know. When I think about it now, I just shake my head. It seems like a different lifetime and a different person.
Yeah.
And so, he basically said to me, look, I'm not just going to lend you money. I'm not going to give you money. But what I will do is I'll give you a safe place to live, for 90 days. I will help you make a plan to get back out on your feet. And so because I was someone who should have known better, there really was a lot of shame and embarrassment for me around the mess that I had gotten myself into. And it just really drove the point home to me that we can have all the head knowledge in the world, but if we don't understand how our emotions affect our decision making, most people know what they're supposed to be doing with their finances, right? I mean, if I asked everybody who's listening to raise your hand if you know that you shouldn't have excessive credit card debt, most hands would go up. If I said, do you know that you should be saving money? Most people would say, yes, I know that. And if I said, you're not supposed to spend more money than you make, right? Most people would say, yes, I would agree with that. But how many people are actually doing what they know? And that gets people to the point of thinking that there's something wrong with them. Like, what's wrong with me that I can't get this part of my life together? Mm-hmm. And that missing piece is really the emotion side of things. Because when I hit financial rock bottom, as I said, I was working as an accountant. I was creating the budget for a multi-million-dollar machine tool company here in Cincinnati. And yet I was bouncing my own checks at home. And I really needed somebody who wasn't emotionally attached to my financial mess to help me put together a plan to move forward. Because when I looked at my finances, to me, it felt like walking into your house after a tornado has struck, right? You open up the front door and just everything is a disaster, right? There's stuff everywhere. Furniture is turned over. And as you look around, I mean, I literally just wanted to slam the door and walk away, right? I didn't even want to deal with it. And so what my dad did was he just said, okay, tell me everything that you owe. Give me all your bills, let me just make a list of everything that we got going on. And then he would just give me 2 things. He'd say, here's the 2 things I want you to do over the next week. Don't worry about everything else. Just do these 2 things. That I could handle because it took the overwhelm out of things. So that would be the equivalent of, if you walked into your house after a tornado struck and someone just said to you, look, don't look at the entire house. You see this coat closet? I want you to organize the coat closet and get that back in order. Just do that. Don't worry about anything else, right? And you'd be like, okay, I can handle that. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what I needed, was for somebody who wasn't emotionally attached to my mess to come in and help me figure out where to start and get me on that path.
Somebody that didn't come in here and be like, God, what did you do?
Oh, and honestly, he would have every right to do that, to be like, how can you owe 3 different payday lenders money? Why do you have all these bills that are in collections? Is there anything that you're not past due on? I mean, he could have said that because it was true.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And, obviously that was an excellent example for me now that I'm a coach, because I never do that to my clients. I take that same approach of, all right, let's just see what we're dealing with. And, I just kind of make the priority list of, okay, I know the 25 things that my clients need to do usually in the first session. I don't tell them all 25 things.
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right, these 3 things, just do these 3 things over the next 2 weeks and then we'll meet again, because I know that works. Otherwise, people get overwhelmed. And you probably see the same thing when you start to work with someone on their fitness and on their eating habits. You probably can almost immediately compile a list of 15 to 20 things that they need to change. But you don't tell them all those things in your first session.
Yeah.
Because you want them to come back.
Well, and even just equating this to me in my own journey of how many times, where I started at a bottom too was, binge eating every single night, secret eating, just hating myself, just punishing myself. And then, if you looked at the big picture for me of like, you have over 100 pounds to lose. It's so much like, why even try? Like,
Right.
It's so overwhelming. But to your point of like, well, why don't we just like try to drink water instead of mainlining Red Bull and Dr. Pepper? Of like, okay, well, I can handle trying to drink more water. I can handle trying to eat one vegetable a day instead of this massive overhaul. But I think that a part that is so hard at that beginning, which is exactly where it's hard for me thinking about finances, is you're going to open the door and see that tornado wreck and you're just like, I don't even want to look at it. It's easier to bury my head in the sand and not even know, to like, on my end, or just like, I don't even want to track my food because I don't even want to know. Like, I know it's not good. It's easier to like turn your head and just look the other way. But at the same time, you're constantly putting yourself in more pain because you're not taking care of it, which is exactly how I feel like in this very moment with my finances, because it's like, I know it's not perfect. I know it's not the worst in the world, but at the same time, like, I don't like budgeting. It's just knowing it all exactly and knowing I have to go in and look at it all feels like somebody is like stepping on my heart. So I just don't do it at all. So I guess my question with that is how do you kind of make that first step? Is the first step of like, okay, you need a coach that will hold your hand in it so it doesn't feel like you're feeling crushed. So, because you have to do it, but at the same time, you're just like, oh, you fight against yourself so much to not do it.
Yeah. Well, that most certainly is the value of a coach, knowing that, this person is going to help you, right? You're not walking into that house that looks like a tornado, your financial house.
Yeah.
That looks like a tornado struck. Like, someone is there by your side and, they're encouraging you. They're making sure that things get done, but they're also saying like, hey, we're not going to get this done in a day. Like, it's okay. And you're not the only person whose financial house looks like this. Yeah. I work with a lot of people. In fact, most of my clients are 6-figure to multiple 6-figure income earners. These are not people who are barely earning enough money. They're people who have kids in private school and select sports. They drive BMWs, and they're thinking, I make too much money to be worried about my money.
Yeah.
But yet I don't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so there is that initial step of admitting, I need help with this. And that really is the hardest part. And unfortunately, well, I guess I kind of jokingly say like sex and money are the same in that no one teaches us about it. We're expected to be good at it, but we're not supposed to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We just assume that everybody else is good at it, right? Because they seem happy, but we have no idea.
Oh, yeah, that's an awesome way to look at it.
Well, and just the fear of talking to somebody about either of those two things. It's like, I'd rather not.
Yeah, well, it's very vulnerable, and like there's so much shame that can be wrapped up into all of that.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, there have been people in the personal finance space, and different financial professionals who have made people feel bad or feel ashamed or feel stupid for the messes that people have gotten themselves into. I've talked to so many people. It's like the equivalent of fat shaming, right? Like debt shaming people. And that doesn't help people get better.
Yeah.
It makes people want to hide. And, my goal and the reason why I started the financial dignity movement is because I want to change that in the financial advice, the financial services industry, to really bring the awareness of the emotional side of money and how people are processing money in their brains, when they get into these unhealthy patterns, so that financial professionals actually have the understanding and the tools to help people move through those emotions productively rather than just throwing their hands up and saying, if you won't listen to my advice, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Right? Because unfortunately, a lot of financial professionals don't get that type of training.
Yeah, and don't have the personal touch to go with the
Right.
numbers.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'd say something that I feel this when thinking about going into my finances, and also there's just so many parallels to thinking of like health and fitness and financial fitness of just you and which it's funny because I know it's not true in the realm of things that I talk about is you think of like, okay, I need to eat healthier. That means, okay, well, I'm going to smack the donut out of your hand. Never allowed to have cheese fries again. Like you just automatically think of like all these things I love, I'm not allowed to have. And when you think about budgeting and taking care of your finances of like, oh, Dave Ramsey's going to pop up out of the bushes and smack the Starbucks out of my hand. I'm not allowed to have this. I can't spend money on the stupid crap that I like to buy every once in a while. And so it's like, oh, well, I don't want my fun things taken away. I don't want my pleasure points of things, dumb crap I spend my money on because I know it's quote unquote dumb. And so you just avoid it because you don't want to put yourself through the pain. But I'm sure your answer is already like, well, yeah, you can still have some of those things. Cause that's my answer of like, yeah, you can eat healthy and go eat some cheese fries and have a beer. You just can't do that all day, every day, but nobody said no. And it's like, I'm sure the same thing comes to finances, but then you have some of those people, I mean, not to throw Dave Ramsey under the bus, but it's like that tell you, yeah, the way to success is basically buttoned down so tight and you're not allowed to like have any fun anymore.
Right. First of all, I would never, ever knock a coffee out of your hand because I love coffee so much. I won't jump out of the bushes and cut up your credit cards either.
Okay,
I
good.
promise. And unfortunately, that philosophy, it basically teaches people the equivalent of financial binge and purge, right? So if you want to improve your finances and currently you're not tracking your spending, you're not restraining yourself, you've got credit card debt, and you go into it with this approach of, I have to be extreme, I can't spend any money on fun, we're going to cut up our credit cards, we're going to eat beans and rice, we're going to sell our nice car, we're going to sell a whole bunch of crap just to get our debt paid off as fast as possible. That's like the equivalent of going on financial keto, right? I could never go on keto because I love carbs.
Yeah, same.
I could never do it. I couldn't. I'm just like, people are like, oh my gosh, I've lost so much weight. And I'm like, I don't care. I literally do not care. If you tell me I have to get rid of my carbs and I can't eat macaroni and cheese, then we cannot be friends. Yeah. And so what I teach my clients is, rather than doing this extreme approach, because what happens is you will get results with that extreme approach. But what happens when you've achieved your goals and it's time to go into your maintenance phase? Mm-hmm. You don't know what being financially healthy looks like because you only know two things. Being completely out of control and being a control freak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't know what it means to have a positive and healthy relationship with your money where it is supporting your happiness. So that's not what I teach my clients. I teach them how to make small, sustainable baby steps over a longer period of time that they can stick with for the long haul. So that's the equivalent of what you said, like, hey, maybe you are drinking Red Bull and Dr. Pepper right now, right? If you're drinking that 4 times a day, well, let's just start with replacing one of those with a glass of water.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the only change we make the first week. And then the second week, we replace another one with a glass of water, right? And so I am basically doing the equivalent of that with people with their finances. If something is important to someone to spend money on, then we will make sure that it fits in their spending plan. I don't even like to use the word budget because it just has so many negative connotations for people, right? If I were to say, like, who's excited about doing a budget? Like, pretty much nobody's going to raise their hand.
It's like the word diet. Nobody's excited about a diet.
Right. But if someone's like, hey, I've got this great healthy eating plan. It's called the Mediterranean diet. And you can have some dark chocolate, and you can have some wine, and you can have some pasta. Hey, sign me up, right? So that's what I tell people. Like, what I teach relative to finances is like the equivalent of the Mediterranean diet. You never have to feel like you're on a diet. You can have the things that you want, but there has to be intentionality, there has to be mindfulness, and there has to be portion control.
Yeah.
Right? So, when you talked about having some cheese fries, you're not having cheese fries 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Right?
Although that sounds awesome.
Right? So it's like, we pick our splurges. They are things that are meaningful for us, but we are still putting, a lot of financial muscle towards our important goals. And so it's really important for me to figure out what makes my clients tick, what are the things that are really stressing them out in their finances, and what are the things that they really want more of, or the things that they do like, about what they're spending money on. And so I don't even talk about cutting spending either. We talk about redirecting spending towards what's really important to you. Mm-hmm. And that's probably something that you talk to your clients about of, well, what does success look like for you? It's not just, sure, maybe you want to lose 20 pounds, but that's just like a piece of it. Like, what else? Well, I don't want to take cholesterol medication anymore. I want to be, healthy enough to run around with my kids. It's like all of those intangible things where the feelings really are, like I want to be able to put on, a pair of jeans and feel really good about my butt.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's as important as losing the 20 pounds or lowering the cholesterol by so many points. And, just really getting to that place of knowing, how do we know that we've succeeded, right? And it's not just the number on the scale or the dollars in the bank account. To me, the highest goal is when money is supporting your happiness and you're not feeling any stress. Now, does that mean there's no work? Does that mean there's, no time spent managing your finances? No. But, we've gotten it to a place to where it doesn't feel burdensome, right?
Yeah.
It's supporting your life and your family. And that's really the goal.
Yeah, to be in a healthy place with money and it's not a dirty or triggering word.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt. We're going to get to the emotional side of finances here in a second. But first, I want to talk about health coaching with Team Fit With Me and my girl, Sarah, who is my health coach. So if you're looking for some health coaching, whether your goals are weight loss, get stronger, just feel healthier, you want to have more knowledge about macros and nutrition and the food that you eat, Sarah is your girl. Team Fit With Me is your crew for health coaching. It's one-on-one nutrition coaching and virtual training. Plus, they run full labs. That's how I found out I have Hashimoto's disease. But they specialize in functional health, including, but not limited to, all gut health conditions, thyroid diseases, PCOS, and hormonal dysfunction. They have meal plans available that's reviewed by a registered dietitian. And there is a food relationship coach partner. She's amazing. She's been on this podcast. 0% financing offered through PayPal for all packages paid in full. And if you use my link, which is teamfitwithme.com/poundthis, it's in the show notes, get 10% off month 1 of all packages, plans, and add-on services. So go check it out. If you need some health coaching, you need some direction, you need an accountability buddy, Sarah is your lady and her whole team. Again, teamfitwithme.com/poundthis. How do you work with people through some certain emotions through this? So my thought process is of thinking, for me, being, having binge eating disorders in the past and stuff like that, and in my even relationship now with food, of being like a comfort, like a numb out, like a disassociation of like, I've had a really crappy day. It sounds good I want to eat and not feel, or I want to have, let's hammer down a bottle of wine because it's been a rough day. And I think the same thing translates to, I'm not feeling 100% right now. Let's hop on Amazon. What kind of stuff can I buy? Let's do some retail therapy. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to do all this stuff to kind of get that dopamine hit. And so obviously that can have all different varying degrees of, where your money is, but I can see that that's a problem. And I see myself doing that, not a ton, but I definitely am guilty of it. So how do you walk with somebody through that? That's like, listen, my emotions are so attached that I go out and spend unnecessary money on things because it's the only way I know how to make myself feel better.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think there are a lot of tools that you probably use with your clients to help them with emotional eating that parallel emotional spending. And so, the first one is being mindful and just taking that minute to stop and take a deep breath before you spend, before you eat, and say, how am I feeling right now? Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, in our society, we don't allow people space to process their emotions.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the positivity movement, like we need it, especially right now, we need all the positive people. I think there's kind of a downside to it because people feel like it's not safe or appropriate to express negative emotions and to acknowledge, like, I'm having a hard day, or I'm angry, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling lonely. That we just kind of just want to sweep all those things under the rug and say, oh, we shouldn't think about those things. Let's just be happy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're human. We have a range of emotions, and, they're there for a reason. Now, we don't have to wallow in those negative emotions, but we still need to acknowledge them and, find ways to productively process those emotions. So I'll give you a good example. I had a client, her mother was a big trigger for her. She was one of those people who, even if her grown daughter had done something wonderful, she would find the one thing that she could have done better, right?
That sounds fun.
Yeah, fun person, right? So she would end up leaving those conversations feeling bad about herself, feeling frustrated, feeling mad, and the way that she self-soothed was through online shopping. And it had just gotten out of control. I mean, just the amount of stuff in the house, the amount of money that was being put on credit cards, on several levels, it wasn't a good thing. So we talked about, what are some non-monetary things that make you feel better, right? So what are some things that we could do when you've had one of these episodes with your mom where you get off the phone with her, or, you leave her house rather than driving to the mall? Let's ahead of time have a list of at least 10 things that you can do that put you in a more positive state. And so we had, we made a list. We could take a bubble bath. We could go for a walk. She could call her best friend. She could go play with her dog and pet her dog, And so we had like this list of 10 things that she could do that would put her in a more positive state of mind other than shopping. And so she put that list and put it right next to her. She literally taped it to her monitor, her computer monitor. So it was a reminder to her at, the place where she was most tempted to say. And she actually wrote on the top of the list, am I feeling mad, sad, frustrated, ? Do one of these before shopping.
Yeah.
Right? And so she literally would make herself do one of those things before she gave herself permission to go shopping. So just checking in with those feelings and, just saying like, hey, it's perfectly legitimate for me to feel this way because of what my mom did or what my mom said. However, I am choosing to process this in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So just bringing that awareness, that's the first step. The second step is tracking. So, when you work with clients and you ask them to write down everything that they eat,
Mm-hmm.
I have done that on various, healthy eating plans over the years. And it is so effective because if you have that sheet of paper sitting on your kitchen table and you're craving a cookie and you pull out that package of cookies and you see that sheet of paper there, and if I eat 6 cookies, I am going to have to write down 6 cookies. Otherwise, I'm a liar. And I'm going to have to give this sheet to Amanda, and she's going to know that I ate 6 cookies. So I'm just going to eat 1 cookie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Sometimes just knowing that this is being tracked helps us to behave better.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing is there are tons of free tools out there that will help you track your spending. So you don't have to physically write everything out. Sometimes it might be good to do that for a short period of time just to engage that mindfulness of, having a note on your phone or, a piece of paper where you're literally writing down everything that you spend for, an entire week. But sticking with that for the long term usually doesn't work. Now, as I told you, I've gone on healthy eating programs in the past where I've had to write down everything I eat. I'm not doing that right now because to me that feels tedious to do that all the time.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right. But having an app that helps you track those things, that's awesome because you just log in, you just click and say like, oh, I had an apple, I had my protein shake this morning, right? And then it helps you to see in real time how you're doing based off of your goals. And using a personal finance app will help you do that. The hardest thing is getting it set up, right? That's usually the piece that people think it's a great idea to do that. But just the thought of, oh, which app should I use? Now I've got to link all my accounts and now I've got to put all my budget categories in. And it's just like, bleh. So that's something that I actually do for my one-on-one coaching clients. So the people who are hiring me to work with me for 6 months, we get them set up on an app. It's one that I have access to. So I literally help them set up their first spending plan and put all their categories in with all the amounts and all that good stuff. And, for 5 months, we are, every single time that we're together, we're getting into the app, we're making sure all their purchases are properly classified, we're looking at their goals versus what they actually did. And so by the time that they graduate out of the coaching, they, it's a habit.
Yeah.
Because every single time we're together, we're using it. They're also going in between sessions and updating things. And so having a tool like that is extraordinarily helpful because it allows you to make better decisions in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially good for those categories that have a tendency to get out of control. Most people aren't overspending on their electric bill. Right?
Yeah.
They're not. They're overspending on things like groceries and eating out and entertainment and clothes. But the problem is keeping track in your head is really hard. Just like keeping track of calories in your head is really hard.
Yeah.
If I even think about, okay, it's the beginning of the month and I'm like, all right, I know how much I have budgeted for clothes. But if I think about last month, let's just say it was the last day of, the last month, and I was going, popping onto Stitch Fix or something to get some clothes, I might be, have I spent have I spent how much money I said I was spending? Like, do I still have any money to spend? If I'm just tracking that in my head, I'd probably be like, yeah, I probably got some extra money. But I don't really know.
Yeah.
But since I'm using an app, I can just hop into the app and see immediately, oh, I budgeted $250 for clothes and I've already spent $150. So I can only spend $100 today, or I can wait until tomorrow and I can spend more if I want to, right? So that's the beauty of tracking, is it helps to engage mindfulness.
I just think that, at least for me, and I also know with, the clients that I do with, because I do have everybody track, and I don't expect anybody to do that long term either. It's just to get the knowledge base. But I think especially that very first week, and this is exactly where, and I'm like, and I know how well this works. And again, in the health and fitness arena, I want to preach it all day. Then when it comes to finances, I'm like, you just don't want to know. I'm like, I don't want to see how much money I'm spending on coffee. I know it's going to be a number that it's going to feel like I'm getting kicked in the gut. And I'm like, and it's like I'd rather just not. And I know that once I have that information, I can use it to my advantage and I'll feel so much better because I won't feel this fear around it. But it's so strange just how human behavior is like, no, I'm choosing to have that like anxiety around it every day rather than just look at it and deal with it. And so you just keep putting it off, even though long term it's the better thing to do. It's just those first steps of like, oh God, I don't want to know. Which where I think it's so helpful, like when you said, I can, with my one-on-one clients, I help them build that all out. Like immediately the feeling for me was like relief of like, at least there's somebody there to be like, yo, Amanda, it's not that bad how much money you're spending. Just at least somebody to give you some sort of feedback instead of you just terrorizing yourself and bullying yourself of like, what a piece of trash you are. You spent $100 on coffee and like, oh, you know better than, and then you just go into that cycle and then it feels like you can't dig out of it. So it feels like that first couple weeks of self-awareness, if you can just push past it, but for some reason it's just like you get locked and you can't move. Well, you just like don't want to know, and it's like and intellectually I know that that's a good thing, but at the same time emotionally I was just kind of like, you don't want to know.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing is that people think if you're smart with your money, then you have to be a miser and you have to live a Spartan lifestyle, right? And it's really about helping my clients learn what proper portion sizes are when it comes to finances relative to their income. So in the same way that you might say, like, look, I am not going to knock a donut out of your hand. However, if you do want a donut, it would be better if you just have like 3 donut holes.
Yeah.
Right? And you could do that twice a week, right? And then someone's going to be like, oh, okay, I know I usually have a donut every day, but knowing that I can still have 3 donut holes twice a week and I don't have to give it up completely and I can still lose weight and feel great and meet my goals, like, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do with our finances. I was just talking with a client yesterday and they're getting a pretty large influx of money. And they were asking me, like, what's best? Should we just put this all towards paying off debt? Or, should we put it all in our savings? Should we split it? And I said, you're leaving something out of the picture. And they were like, what? And I said, I want you to blow at least 10% of that money.
Cool, you're hired.
And they're like, what? And I said, I want you to blow at least 10% of that money. And they're like, okay. I mean, because it was several $1,000s and they do have a sizable amount of debt that needs to be paid off. And I said, look, here's the thing. If we want this to be sustainable, then, if we're taking at least 80% of this money and doing something productive with it, we're going to make some amazing progress and we're going to get some amazing traction. But if we don't allow you to enjoy some of it, then you're going to get to a point to where you feel deprived, and then you're going to have a chunk of money come in and you're going to blow the entire thing. Mm-hmm. So let's fit this formula in where anytime you get a windfall of unexpected money, we're going to, 70 to 80% of it, we're going to do something productive with it. And then we're going to enjoy the rest. And we're going to be intentional about how we enjoy that. It's going to be something that we have particularly picked out and that we're excited about, and we're going to make it an occasion. I got this epiphany relative to eating not too long ago. I like ice cream. I love mint chocolate chip. And rather than, sitting in the basement in the recliner with a pint, kind of feeling like bad about myself, you're talking about beating yourself up, right? Mm-hmm. I decided that if and when I want my ice cream, that I will eat it. And I will eat it. I have this, it's actually like a crystal champagne glass,
fancy.
Not like the tall flutes, but, the one that's wide. So when I want ice cream, I'll do 2 scoops, which is probably right about the proper serving size. And I'll put it in that crystal glass.
Yeah.
And I will eat it that way at the kitchen table, right? I am the queen of my body, the queen of my money, the queen of my life, eating my ice cream out of a crystal dish, not hiding down in the basement in my sweatpants, tucking into a pint of Ben & Jerry's, right? There's a whole different feeling to that. And the feeling is just as important as the action.
Yeah, and that's a point that I've heard before too, and I try to live by this a little bit more, especially as women, that we always put ourselves last. We're on the back burner and give to everybody else. And I have found myself so guilty of this too, of oh, well, those are earrings for a good occasion, or that's a dress for a good occasion. And I'm saving this for that. And it's but why isn't it right now? Why can't it be celebrated right now? And again, it's not a reason to go splurge and completely YOLO and blow up your whole life, but taking more of those kind of everyday moments of well, this is my favorite shirt, but I only wear it on special occasions of but why isn't today a special occasion? And doing more of those things, I think, where you're doing it for yourself and you're intentional that you're doing these things to make yourself feel good in that moment. And I think it's just really savoring that, to be hey, I know that I'm getting these 3 donut holes a couple times a week, and to be this is my moment, and to really just kind of be present and be because today's the day and I feel awesome with it. And I think that we don't do those things enough. And we again, it goes into the binge and purge, that we just deprive until we explode. And then it's but why couldn't we bring more of those explode moments into every day, so then you can have more joy instead of feeling just so oppressed all the time until you can't take it anymore.
Yes, absolutely. And, something just popped into my mind. I used to be the kind of person who, if I saw something I liked, let's just say I saw a Michael Kors purse that was on sale, and I went onto the website, and, they always have several different colors, right? And there's one color that's on rock bottom sale.
Yeah.
Right? The rest are on sale, 30% off, but there's one that's 70% off. And it's usually some weird color, right?
Yeah.
Some weird color, or it's a color that's kind of going out of style, etc. I would buy the one that was, the most marked down, even if it was my second or third choice. Mm-hmm. And I've stopped doing that. Because what would happen is I would end up having more stuff that I actually liked less. Or I'd look at it and I would think, I really wish I would have bought the blue one because that was so much prettier.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And, maybe I would have had to wait a week so that I had the money for that one. Or maybe if it meant that I bought that purse, that I would have to put off buying something else for a couple of weeks, or I'd have to scale back somewhere else. I've stopped doing that. It's like, if there's something that I really want, if I don't have the money saved, then I say, okay, what is the goal here? How much do I need to save up for this so I can get what I really want? So every single time I see it, every single time I use it, I can say, I'm so glad I bought that. Like, I really, really love this.
Yeah.
And feel good about it, because like I said, the whole point of money is to support your happiness. And we can do that in balance.
Yeah. It just feels like so many of us let money rule our lives, and instead of us using it as a tool, and using it to our benefit. But that's where I think that we don't have that knowledge. Like, this is something that feels like we should have been taught in school. Like, I mean, I was taught how to write out a check in the 90s. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that's helpful, I guess. But it's like, but can you tell me, like, but what about the actual checking account? Like, what am I doing with the money in there? And none of this is knowledge. And I feel like that's why we're all just so scattered, and myself included. I've never had any sort of training or knowledge on this, other than what I, kind of just what you hear floating around of like, yeah, just don't quit going to Starbucks if you want to save money. So I think that having a coach and somebody, working with you of like, okay, no, this is something that is necessary to live. I'm tired of my life being ruled by money. How do I make this work for me? So I have a less anxiety in my life. I'm happy. I'm taking the trips I want. I'm buying the things that I want. I'm having, not worried about rent getting paid or losing my house. And so it's one of those things, again, or at least another parallel to health and fitness of so many people, well, I can't afford that. Like, I can't afford to eat healthier. And yes, it is cheaper to buy ramen and fast food. It totally is cheaper, but in the long run, what is that doing for your health, and how is that going to cost you, not only monetarily, but just out of your own enjoyment and how your body behaves? Are you not even going to be able to move, and you're going to have hospital bills? So it's like really understanding of like hiring a coach or digging deep and understanding these things of, yes, that it's a cost to it, but ultimately it's going to give you the freedom you want and give you more of that money. It's just the investment up front. And that's the same sort of thing, with healthy eating of like, yeah, it costs more to buy broccoli, but there's other ways to do it. You can buy frozen broccoli. There's all these different sort of things that you can find tips and tricks. So it's not as expensive, but if it's important to you and you want long-term results, you're going to have to kind of, adapt and fidget around to find a way to make it work. Because if you're not, and it's like, well, I'm going to go spend, hey, I'm going to impulse buy a go-kart, but I could have used that money and I could have hired a financial coach. So I don't have a go-kart that's just sitting in my garage now that I'm not using because I thought it would be cool for a weekend. But now I have this long-term financial knowledge. I think it's just kind of finding those balances again, like you said, tune in of like, where's the best way that I could spend this, this time, this energy, this money to make sure that the quality of my life is better moving forward, instead of this impulse weekend. The go-kart feels good now, but I'm going to feel like hell about it later.
Right. And it's just so amazing to me, the financial progress that my clients make over a 6-month time period. It's, I never promise that people will see returns within the first 30 to 60 days, but I've never, ever had a client not get a positive return on the money that they've paid me if they complete my 6-month program.
That's awesome.
And some of them, it's insane, the progress that they make. And I never promise that this will happen, but it's so eerie how when someone is intentional about, I'm going to start doing better with money, that more money starts flowing their way.
That's amazing.
I mean, I never promise it, but it happens to almost every single client that I coach.
Dang.
Like, you just will not believe what happened. And I'm like, I believe it.
You're just a good luck charm.
God, the universe, whatever, is like, all right, she's serious. He's serious. They're serious about getting their finances in order, and they're proving it. Now I know I can trust them with more.
So what are the different coaching levels that you offer, and where would somebody go to get started with that?
Yeah, so I only have one coaching experience for my one-on-one clients, and that's working together for 6 months. That's my financial dignity coaching. I work with single and divorcing women, and I also work with couples. They can go to my website. It's christineluken.com, and then there'll be a tab there that says coaching, and they can see what the couples coaching and the coaching for women looks like, and they can schedule a call with me to see if they're a good fit. If one-on-one coaching isn't for everybody, that's okay. I also have a membership called Financial Dignity on Demand, which is more of the DIY version. So if someone, as I said, most of my clients are making 6 figures. So for someone who's maybe just starting out, or that's not, the coaching fees aren't affordable to them, there's basically a self-paced membership, and they do get support of me answering their questions in the Facebook group and all that good stuff. So they just don't get the hand holding and, the absolute, the really personalized interactions and recommendations. But I've had some people who've gone through the membership that have had some really amazing results too. So if someone's self-motivated, that's also an option. And or my book, Money is Emotional, which is on Amazon.
Awesome. I mean, obviously, you're your own best testimony as well, is that you've lived this, and you pulled yourself out of, being able to break up with a jailbird dude and and can build a whole business on this. You obviously know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Which is absolutely amazing. So congratulations on all of your success. Because it's so one of those things too. And I'm sure, as that you could have been in that situation and decided not to make a change. And, I'm sure you've thought about, where would my life be now if I just didn't make that decision?
I know where it'd be.
Jail?
Last I heard, he's living in the trailer park next to his mom's trailer.
Oh, okay. Well,
so my husband jokingly said, "You could have been queen of the trailer park." I'm like, shut your mouth.
But, I think that's also just an important note of where you said it starts with the, tuning in with yourself to be like, I realize this isn't where I want to be. I have to go through the motions to make a change, and nothing is going to change unless you make that choice. So maybe this, podcast, somebody's listening to this, and this is the day, and maybe it's my day to be like, this is something I know I think about often. I know I need to change this, and this is my spark of this is okay. Well, it's not going to change if I don't ever change it. And now is the turning point, because who knows where it could go from here? You're an author, and you're an entrepreneur, and you do all of these things, and you've helped, I'm sure, hundreds, thousands of other people go work through this. And that would have never happened if you didn't make the choice to do this for yourself, for your quality of life. And I think that's so amazing. And I think that's, again, the parallel for health and fitness of, if I want to get healthy, if I want to get off that blood pressure medication, if I want to be able to pick up my grandkids without any back issues, and I want to move my body and feel healthy, then the choice has to be mine to start making the changes to make that happen now. So I'm really hoping somebody goes to christineluken.com and they're like, okay, this is it. Let's go. Today is the day. And I'm going to sign up, and I'm going to find the windfall of money. Christine's she is my good luck charm, and now money's coming my way.
Absolutely. Let's do this, sister.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great chatting with you, and we'll have to go grab some mint chocolate ice cream together sometime.
That sounds perfect.
AmandaValentineBites.com